USS Kidd, a Fletcher-class destroyer, was the first ship of the United States Navy to be named after Rear Admiral Isaac C. Kidd, who died on the bridge of this flagship USS Arizona during the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, a National Historic Landmark. She is now a museum ship, berthed on the Mississippi River in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and is the only surviving U.S. destroyer still in her World War II configuration. The Kidd was launched on February 28, 1943 by Federal Shipbuilding and Drydock Company, Kearny, New Jersey, sponsored by Mrs. Isaac C. Kidd, widow of Rear Admiral Kidd. The destroyer was commissioned on April 23, 1943. During her initial cruise to the Brooklyn Naval Shipyards, she sailed across New York Harbor with the Jolly Roger flying from the foremast. Subsequently, during outfitting, her crew adopted the pirate Captain William Kidd as their mascot and commissioned a local artist to paint a pirate figure on the forward smokestack. After shakedown out of Casco Bay, Maine in June, Kidd cruised in the Atlantic and Caribbean escorting large combatant vessels until she departed for the Pacific in August 1943, in company with the battleships Alabama and South Dakota, arriving at Pearl Harbor on September 17, 1943. She got underway on September 29, escorting aircraft carriers toward Wake Island for the heavy air attacks conducted on October 6 on Japanese installations located there, returning to Pearl Harbor on October 11, 1943. Mid-October, Kidd was underway with a task force to strike Rabaul and support the Bougainville landings. Upon reaching a strike position south of Rabaul on the morning of November 11, the task force launched attacks upon Japanese positions on the island. Kidd was ordered to rescue the crew of an aircraft from Essex which had ditched astern of the formation. During this rescue, a group of Japanese aircraft attacked the destroyer. Kidd shot down 3 attacking aircraft and completed the rescue while maneuvering to dodge torpedoes and bombs. Commander Roby, her commanding officer, received the Silver Star for gallantry during this action. The destroyer returned to Espiritu Santo on November 13. Kidd next screened carriers making air attacks on Tarawa during the Gilbert Islands invasion from November 19 to the 23rd. On November 25, she spotted 15 low-flying enemy bombers heading toward the heavy ships, gave warning, and shot down 2 HED-3A Valdi bombers. After Tarawa was secure, Kidd remained in the Gilbert Islands to support cleanup operations before returning to Pearl Harbor on December 9. On January 11, 1944, Kidd sailed for the forward area at Espiritu Santo, then sailed the next day for Funafuti, arriving on January 19. During the invasion of the Marshall Islands from January 29 to February 8, Kidd screened heavy ships and bombarded Rowan Watch, then anchored at Kwajalein, February 26. From March 20 to April 14, Kidd guarded an airstrip under construction on Amira, and supported the occupation of Atape in Hollandia and New Guinea April 16 to May 7. She fought in the Marianas Campaign from June 10 to July 8 and performed shore bombardment at Guam between July 8 and August 10. In need of repairs, Kidd sailed for Pearl Harbor, arriving on August 26, 1944. On September 15, she departed Pearl, reached Eniwetok on September 26, and arrived at Manus on October 3. There she became part of the giant Philippines invasion fleet and entered Leyte Gulf on October 20. Here, she screened the initial landings and provided fire support for soldiers who fought to reconquer the island until she sailed on November 14 for Humboldt Bay, New Guinea, arriving on November 19. On December 9, Kidd headed toward Mare Island Navy Yard for overhaul and moored at Mare Island on Christmas Day. Kidd sailed February 19, 1945, to join Task Force 58 for the invasion of Okinawa. Trained in battle-wise, Kidd played a key role during the first days of the Okinawa campaign, screening battleships, bombarding shore targets, rescuing downed pilots, sinking floating mines, providing early warning of raids, guarding the heavily damaged aircraft carrier Franklin, and helping to shoot down kamikazes. While on picket station April 11, 1945, Kidd and her division mates, Black, Bullard, and Chauncey, with the help of Combat Air Patrol, repelled 3 air raids. That afternoon, a single enemy plane crashed into Kidd, killing 38 men and wounding 55. As the destroyer headed south to rejoin the task group, her fire drove off further enemy planes that were trying to finish her off. Stopping at Ulithi for temporary repairs, she got underway on May 2 for the West Coast, arriving at Hunters Point Naval Shipyard on May 25. On August 1, 1945, Kidd sailed to Pearl Harbor and returned to San Diego, California September 24, 1945 for inactivation. She decommissioned on December 10, 1946 and entered the Pacific Reserve Fleet. When North Korea attacked South Korea, the United States called up a portion of its reserve fleet. Kidd was a part of that call and was recommissioned on March 28, 1951. The destroyer sailed to the Western Pacific on June 18 and arrived at Yokosuka, Japan on July 15. She joined Task Force 77 and patrolled off the Korean coast until September 21, when she sailed for the east coast of Korea. From October 21 to January 22, 1952, Kidd bombarded targets of opportunity from Wondu Island to below Kosong. She then sailed with Destroyer Division 152 to San Diego, arriving on February 6, 1952. Kidd again got underway for Korea on September 8, 1952, joined the screen of a hunter-killer group near Kojo, and, in November, was back on bombardment missions off North Korea. Shortly after that, truce talks began. Kidd continued to patrol the Korean coast during negotiations. She departed the Far East on March 3, 1953 via Midway and Pearl Harbor and arrived in San Diego for overhaul on March 20. Once the overhaul was completed, Kidd proceeded to Long Beach, California on April 20, 1953. The next day, the Swedish freighter Hainan collided with Kidd in Long Beach Harbor, requiring repairs that lasted until May 11, 1953. With the onset of the Cold War, from late 1953 to late 1959, Kidd alternated between West Pacific anti-Soviet submarine patrols with operations on the West Coast, making stops at Pearl Harbor and various ports in Japan, Okinawa, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. She visited Sydney, Australia, on March 29, 1958 and later that year entered the Taiwan Strait. Kidd got underway on January 5, 1960 for the East Coast via the Panama Canal, arriving at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on January 25. From there, she made Naval Reserve training cruises to various East Coast ports. She joined Fleet Operating Forces during the Berlin Crisis in 1961. December 1961 found Kidd patrolling off the Dominican Republic in a show of force patrol to provide an element of security in the troubled Caribbean. Kidd arrived at Norfolk, Virginia on February 5, 1962 and joined Task Force Alpha for anti-submarine warfare exercises. On April 24, she was assigned to the Naval Destroyer School at Newport, Rhode Island, after a cruise to the Caribbean. On July 1, 1962, she resumed Naval Reserve training. Kidd was decommissioned on June 19, 1964, entered the Atlantic Reserve Fleet, and was berthed at the Philadelphia shipyard. In 2018, Kidd was used as a stand-in for the fictional Fletcher-class destroyer USS Keeling, codenamed Greyhound, from C.S. Forester's novel The Good Shepherd, in its appearance in the book's cinematic adaptation, Greyhound. In 2022, Kidd appeared on the Disney Plus series National Treasure: Edge of History.